Mano pubbangama dhamma mano setta mano maya manasace pasannena bhasati va karoti va tato nang sukhamanveti kayava anapayani. Venerable Chief Reverend, Venerable Sirs, friends, children, good evening and welcome for our Saturday Dhamma talks. Today we are continuing the series of talks based on Satipatthana, foundation of mindfulness. Today the third foundation, which is consciousness, chitta, or the mind. The way the Buddha taught, establishing mindfulness on the consciousness as contemplation of the mind itself. Now, what is mind and what is the significance in contemplating upon the mind is something we have to think about prior to the fraction of meditation to bring in. Chitta is the term that the Buddha used for the mind. Chitta usually translated as consciousness. Consciousness also defines the Pali word vijnana, which indicates the energy that came into this body and that which lasts, which exits in this body to the death, and which depart from this body to go into a new body. The undercurrent energy also translated as consciousness. Now, misunderstanding or miscomprehension of the reality of this undercurrent or inner being, inner reality, or simply the mind has paved the way for the arising of a view called the self or a soul or Atma. Misunderstanding of the way the mind functions, its characteristics, and its manifestations. So, what is the characteristic of the mind? When we go to the root of the term chitta, we can see the characteristic. Chitta comes or derived from the root called chitti. Chitti is the root for chitta. It means to cognize or to know. So the main characteristic of the consciousness of the chitta is to know, to cognize. It is a singular characteristic. Now, whatever object is contacted on the six sense doors, eye, ear, nose, tongue, the body, and the mind itself. Whatever object is connected with these six sense doors, the cognition of that connection or knowing of that object is the major function of the mind. And this is the major organ of experiencing of the objects, the chitta, the consciousness. Though your eyes see something, the eye is just an excuse, just a door, just an object that helps the mind to see the external color, a material object. Mind is the one which experience in the form of seeing that object, not just the composite eye, so also the other organs. They are called the doors, dwara. These doors support the mind for the external objects to reach there. So the mind, the chitta, in the form of knowing or cognizing, experience the exterior objects fully, completely. So remember, the very characteristic of the mind is a singular entity, which is to cognize, to know. This is the way the mind functions. This is the way the mind behaves. Knowing whatever objects come, from whatever sense doors, mind knows it. If the mind doesn't know, it means the rest of the thought process is never to function, never to happen. First to happen is knowing. That is why the first stanza in the Dhammapada, its first line explains the function of the mind, the way it works. That's why I decided to use it as the topic sentence, topic verse for this talk. Mano ubbangama Dhamma. Dhamma is phenomena. In this context, we can say they are mental factors, thoughts. Ubbangama, forerunning, precede, comes earlier. Ubbangama, mano, mind. Mind precedes mental factors. This is how, if you explain this first line of this first stanza of the Dhammapada in the sense of ultimate according to the Dhamma, mind is preceding, coming earlier than the mental factors. How does it come? in the form of knowing the object, cognizing the object. After that cognition, after that knowing, then the rest of the mental factors facilitate or adore, beautify or make it ugly, the mind. But remember, as a nature, as a characteristic, mind is only a singular quality, which is chitti, to know, to cognize. Now, the way the mind functions is something mysterious. That's why we have to meditate. That's why we have to put our effort to concentrate. Because the way the mind functions is so unpredictable, so away from beyond our comprehension. In the Dhammapada, there is a Vagga called Chitta Vagga. In this Chitta Vagga, Buddha tries a variety of methods to explain the way the mind works in ourselves. He says, Pandanang chapalang chittang durakkang dunnivarayang. The quivering and wavering mind, hard to guard, hard to check. Durakkang dunnivarayang, hard to guard, hard to check. Again he says, Varijova tale kitto okamokata ubbato paripandati dan chittam. Idam chittam paripandati. The mind flaps like a water creature plucked from its watery home and thrown on land. If you have seen a fish out of water on the dry land, the weight jumps up and down, not a moment of stillness. Our mind is fluttering like that. Our mind works like that. Not a moment of stillness there. Not a moment of silence is there. Though our mouth is silent, the body is still, mind runs haywire here and there, uncontrollable, even unnoticeable. It runs as it wish, not we wish. Again Buddha says, Dunnigahang, hard to hold down, hard to settle it down. Dunnigahang, yatta kama nipatino, alighting wherever it wants. Sududasang, hard to be seen. Sunipunang, extremely subtle. Durangamang, far-ranging. Ekacharang, roaming alone. Asarirang, incorporeal. This is how Buddha explains the mind as it is, the mind that we inherited with our birth. the mind that we brought in from our past lives. That's how he explained. There was a junior monk. He had a teacher who is an arahant, an enlightened disciple of Buddha. This junior monk went to a faraway temple to observe his rains retreat. After the rains, he came back. When he was leaving that faraway temple, the devotees of that temple offered him few yards of cloth to make robes and other necessary requisites for a monk. They offered all these to this junior monk. When this junior monk came back to his original temple, he offered all these to his teacher. But the teacher is not someone who looks for many things. He is happy with small things. He doesn't want all those things. So he rejected. No, you keep it. You keep them. I don't want. The junior monk misunderstood the teacher's idea. He thought, my teacher is angry with me. Now a thought arises, anger. My teacher is angry with me. Now there is this unhappiness lurking in his mind. Teacher is sitting down on a chair. It's a hot day. So this disciple was fanning him with a Palmyra fan for the teacher. While he was fanning, his unpleasant mind proliferating, creating thoughts related to that original unpleasantness because of the teacher's rejection. He was proliferating thoughts and he is dreaming, my teacher doesn't like me anymore. There is no point of living in this temple since my teacher doesn't like me. I must disrobe. I must go away. When I go away, I will buy a cow. I will sell this robe, sell this cloth, and buy a cow. And this cow will give birth to another calf. And I will have a herd of cows very soon. Then I will get married. I will settle down. I will have a house. And my wife will give a birth to a son. One day, when the son is old enough, on a chariot, I will come to see my teacher. On the way, in any case, if my wife, because of her carelessness, let the child fall down, I will hit that woman with this stick. And he hit the woman. And he heard the sound tongues. He hit something. Then he came to the present. In his dreaming, in his proliferation of thinking, proliferation of thoughts, he has hit his wife, but in reality he has hit his teacher with the stick of that Palmyra fan, he has hit that old monk. This old monk is not a normal one, not a general simple monk. As I said before, he was an arahant. He could see the way this monk, this junior monk, was thinking. His series of thoughts went without notice, went with teacher's inspection. Teacher saw this, the way this monk is thinking. Then he looked up and he said to this junior monk, "You couldn't hit your wife, but you could hit your teacher." And this is how our mind works. Small excuse is enough to create a train, hours-long train of thoughts. Thought after thought, series of thoughts we create based on a small incident. And ultimately, sometimes we even go for extremely wrong decisions because of this series of thoughts. Yeah, that's how durangamam, go far away, our mind. Hard to see when it is gone. Mind is gone, we are not aware. Mind is creating its own story. We are not mindful about it. We do not know. And ultimately, what happened? We work, we talk, we function according to that mind. Like that junior monk, we are going to disappoint about ourselves if we are to work based on this train of thoughts, series of thoughts. So in the Dhammapada, if you happen to read this Chitta Vagga, the section related to the mind, it is such a interesting manner that the Buddha explains how does this mind work within us. So the Chitta is, as I just now explained, it is an activity. That activity is cognizing. And the Chitta is also explained as an agent. That agent is doing the function of thinking. Arammanam chinte titi chitta. Its function is thinking in the form of an agent. And also in commentaries, it is explained as an instrument. Chitta as an instrument. Attain chinte titi chitta. As an instrument, with the help of mental factors, mental concomitants, the Chitta generates thoughts. But all these definitions explains one singular fact. There is no soul, there is no self, there is no Atma, but this activity of thought process, thinking process is going on. Though the mind is look like or seemingly look like a composite whole, an integral unity, Chitta or consciousness is none other than a series of thought moments. A series of thought moments. A thought moment. In Pali, we call it Cittākkhana. A thought moment which arise, exist, gives birth to another thought moment and pass away. Upadha, arise, Thiti, exits, and Bhanga, destruction. Meanwhile, gives birth to another thought moment. So, one after the other, these thought moments occur. There is no one creating these thoughts. It is an activity which is continuously happening without any external influence of an external agency. It is an activity which is happening continuously since our birth, since our conception, to the moment of our last thought moment. It is an activity continuously happening. Thought moment after thought moment. They arise singularly. So no two thought moments arise at once, only a singular thought moment. Though it seems they arise simultaneously, there are no two thought moments to arise at a singular moment. Now, a thought moment is something extremely fast, extremely difficult to witness with a mind which is not trained with meditation. Only a mind which is cultivated with awareness, developed with mindfulness, can grasp, can observe, can witness such a fragile, such a minute, extremely minute thought moment. Now the example is when a lightning appears in the sky and vanish, or in a blink of an eye, in such a small or trivial fraction of time, period of time, thousands of thought moments arise and vanish. Only in the meditative wisdom this can be clearly witnessed, not with the general awareness. In general awareness, the mind looks like a composite whole, interwoven composite whole. It looks like a solid thing within us. That's why the self-view is generated. But in the meditative wisdom that the Buddha saw, this mind is nothing but impermanent, which exists moment to moment, momentarily exists. And that moment is something beyond our words. No word can explain such a minute period of time. That's why he gave this example of, or he gave these similes to a blink of an eye or the appearance of a lightning. In such a period of time, thousands of thought moments arise and vanish. That's how he explained. So mind as a characteristic is to cognize or to know. As a function, it comes first, pubbangama. And also as a function, it arises alone. There is no two thought moments at a singular moment to arise. Only a singular thought arises at one moment. And thought moment after thought moment, all together we call this line of or series of thought moments we have taken as consciousness or the mind. Then we go to the manifestation of the consciousness. Now the characteristic is to know, but the manifestation of the consciousness happens based on the mental factors. Mental factors color up or create the shape of consciousness. Chitta, the mind is shaped by, colored by the mental factors. In Digha Nikaya, Satipatthana Sutta, Mahasatipatthana Sutta, presents 16 types of consciousness, 16 types of minds that a meditator would observe in his meditation. These 16 types are universal. These 16 types are for all, including human beings, divine beings, or beings in the Brahma realms, and also to the mundane as well as supramundane. It means it is common also to the enlightened ones. These 16 are inclusive to all living beings who has the function of the consciousness, who has the function of the mind. The first one is mind affected by lust. We call it saragam. The lust or the desire for sense pleasures. Basically, the living beings who are in the realms of sense pleasures, 6 divine realms, human realm, and also hellish realms. Usually our minds are based on the desire for pleasing our senses. That is the main goal for us. That is the main purpose for us. Our education, our effort, our day-to-day activities, all related to that, to please our senses better than yesterday, better than others, thinking that one day we can be satisfied. This is what we think. One day we will be satisfied. That day will never come back. That is another fact. But That is our aim, that is our goal, to please our senses. So whatever thoughts arise in us to please the senses, they are called sarāga citta, mind affected by lust. A meditator, when he meditates, he can see that the mind is generating these thoughts, sarāga citta, my thoughts affected by lust. Then he observes them as they are. When he is observing them as they are, naturally, in your observation, they cannot function properly, or they cannot prevail, they cannot dominate you. They start dispersing. Now, in our previous 2 talks, if you happen to remember, we explained the way our breathing connects to the mind, how our breathing changes when the mind changes. I explained to you that when you observe breathing, actually, in reality, you are observing your mind. Because what happens to your mind is shown in your breathing. In our next talk on feelings, Cittānupassanā, I explained to you the sensations, the feelings that arise in the body, connected with the thought patterns or with the emotions that arise in your mind. Though you cannot see the thought patterns or emotions directly in the beginning of the practice, with the familiarization or being familiar with the feelings, you can detect the thought pattern. You can detect the emotions easily, because the root of the mind is based on feelings. Feelings comes first, thoughts and emotions comes later. That's how it works. So the sequence must be there in the practice of vipassana. Sequence is first to practice Cittānupassanā, the physical postures, the decomposition of the body, the breathing patterns. I gave you a list of meditative objects, meditation objects for the practice of Cittānupassanā, reflection or observing the physical form. Then comes the Vedana-nupassana, that is the second step. The second step is to observe the feelings, sensations of the body. It also indirectly connected with the mind. When you are observing the breathing, indirectly, you are observing your mind. Again, when you are observing your feelings, sensations that arise throughout this body, indirectly you are observing your mind. Now you are getting familiar with the observation of your mind, so you can directly approach there. The mind itself can be observed. So when the mind is getting these thoughts of lust, sarāga cittas, thoughts of lust, the meditator is aware of them, is mindful of them. Okay, my mind is now having these lustful thoughts. Thoughts related to sensual pleasures. It is harmful. It is harmful for my practice. It is related to the realms of sense pleasures. My aim is to go beyond that. He does not reject those thoughts. He does not fight with those thoughts. What does he do? He observes them. He witnesses them. He comprehends them as they really are. As his observing continues, as his witness is continuing, these lustful thoughts bound to disperse, bound to lose the energy, the power in them. They are bound to vanish. That's how one practice upon these thoughts when they arise. They have a two goals. One is to get rid of those unwholesome thought patterns which will imprison you to the sensual pleasures, sensual realms, to the world, and to enhance, cultivate, develop when the wholesome thought patterns arise. These are the two goals in the observation of the function of the mind, manifestation of the mind with the mental concomitants, with the cetasikas, with mental factors. So the first one is saragha chitta, the mind with lustful thoughts. The next one is mind unaffected by lust, viraga chitta. When the mind is bringing out the thoughts based on something he has seen. For example, when you happen to see a Lord Buddha, a statue, usually the thoughts arise are not sensual. Yeah? Sensual thoughts cannot arise seeing a statue of Lord Buddha. Viraga chitta. Mind unaffected by lust. He understands that my mind is not affected by lust at this moment. The beautiful thing is, wholesome thought patterns, when you observe, flourish, develop, enhance. Unwholesome thought patterns, emotions, when you observe, they disperse, vanish, gradually fade away. So the second mind to observe is the mind unaffected by lust. The third one is mind affected by hate. This can be the hardest one to observe, because when the hate comes, it comes like a tsunami, overwhelming you, dominating you, subduing you, reducing you to a slave. It comes up. But a meditator, with his development, now he can even observe when that hate comes to the mind. Okay, my mind is affected by hate now. That's good enough for that hate to disperse. Remember, this meditator in this level of Cittānupassanā, reflection or contemplation of the mind, in that level, he is somebody who has developed to a certain higher level. He can observe it. He can witness whenever a thought arises in his mind. He see, my mind is now having these thoughts of hatred, having these thoughts of lust. So the third one is the mind affected by hate. Sadosang, sadosa chitta. And the next one is mind unaffected by hate. When the love arises, unconditional love, metta arises, he knows my mind has no hate now. It means the opposite, the love is there. Unconditional love is there. Metta is there. Mind unaffected by hate, adosam. Then comes the weak, deluded mind, samoham. The deluded mind is the mind affected by basically restlessness and doubt. A mind affected by restlessness, affected by doubt, is a mind which is deluded. So he understands as it is. The delusion, nature that has arisen in the mind. He witnesses it as it is. Now for us, for normal people, for non-meditators, what is the best thing you could do when a delusion is there, when your mind is overpowered with delusion? It means your mind is either doubting or restlessness is there. Two things you can do. Calm down yourself. Take a break from everything. Have some rest. Be away from things that if you do with that restlessness, with that doubting, you make more harm than benefit for others. So better be away. That's the first thing. Second thing, don't do anything. Don't commit anything because there's a possibility that you make a mistake. Now, this is general sense. But a meditator, when the mind is restlessness, he understands as it is. Restlessness means delusion is overpowering my mind. So the fifth one is deluded mind, samoham, undeluded mind, the opposite. Mind is concentrated. When the mind is clear, when you can see and understand things clearly, it means your mind is undeluded. Meditator understands it. Then next one is contracted mind. Sankitta chitta, contracted mind. It is a mind which is fallen into sloth and torpor. Thina midda, sloth and torpor, makes the mind contracted. Yeah? A meditator sees that in meditation that he is being dominated by his sleep, by the laziness, yeah, pushing him to sleep or to get rid of that meditation. He sees it, he observes it as it is. Contracted mind is the seventh one. Then comes the distracted mind. Distracted mind, vikhitta chitta. Vikhitta chitta. Of course, restlessness, uddacha, is the reason for the distraction of the mind. The next one is exalted mind. We call it mahaggata chitta. Yeah? Mahaggata chitta are the consciousness which have climbed up to the levels of fine material and the immaterial jhanas. Mahaggata chitta. Yeah? They have moved up beyond the realms of, beyond the levels of sense pleasures. They are no more interested in the sense pleasures. Rupavachara and Narupavachara jhana are the absorptions that exist in that mind. So a mind with these absorptions of fine material and immaterial are Mahaggata Chittas. Then comes the Amahaggata Chitta, which is the opposite of Mahaggata, belong to the sense pleasures. And then the surpassed mind, Anuttara Chitta. Surpassed mind is the mind which is gone beyond even Mahaggata Chitta, gone beyond the mundane and entered into the supramundane, Lokuttara Chittas. Yeah, we have explained all this in our previous talks about these Mahaggata Chittas and the Lokuttara Chittas. Surpassed mind is that mind. Unsurpassed mind is the mind which is again stuck in the realms of sensual pleasures. His major thoughts are related to sensual pleasures. Then comes the concentrated mind, samahita chitta and unconcentrated mind. Next one is liberated mind and unliberated mind. Vimutta chitta, avimutta chitta. Liberated from what? Liberated from tadanga pahana, overcoming by the opposite, vishkambana pahana, overcoming by repression. Yeah. These two, tadanga and vishkambana pahana, this two overcoming is the cause for the arising of concentrated mind, liberated mind. And if a mind is not liberated from this tadanga and vishkambana, they are called the unliberated minds. So these are the 16 types of minds that the Buddha explained in the Mahasatipatthana Sutta as the meditator who witness in his meditation as the types of mind. Now, if we are to sum up the facts that we try to explain here, the foremost goal of this practice on vipassana, on chitta, on consciousness, is to get rid of the defilements in the mind. In the earlier practices, based on the body and the feelings, again directed to get rid of the defilements in the body, in the mind, in the consciousness. But in this practice, it is directly, without the help of body or feelings, it directly observes the nature of the mind as it is changing, as it is taking different forms, different colors, based on the mental factors. Mind is a singular unit, singular nature, and a singular function. Yeah. As a nature, it arises alone at a singular moment and it gives birth to another thought moment. Likewise, this series of thought moments arise and vanish and continue. Yeah. Now, there is a stanza. People usually misunderstand this stanza. They say, Nama gottam najirati, rupan jirati, machanang nama gottam najirati. With the death, the body decays, but not the nama gottam. This nama gotta is the lineage of the mind. The lineage of the mind, as some of our Sri Lankans have misunderstood, it is not the name, it is the mind. They say the mind, they say the name never decays, though the body decays. Name also decays. People forget your name sooner or later. Yeah. But in this stanza, it has nothing to do with the name. It means Nama Gottam, the lineage of the mind. Najirati, never decays. Thought moment after thought moment. It continues. Even at the moment of our physical death, when the Chutichitta arises, the dying conscious moment, when it arises only to have a patisandhi chitta, relinking consciousness. Chutichitta doesn't arise to terminate the process. It is just a cause, just a condition for the relinking patisandhi chitta to arise. It never dies. It is continuing. That is why Buddha says, Appamado amatapadam. One who has seen this never ending, never dying series of thought moments. One who has seen this series of thought moments is the one who meditates. One who meditates Cittānupassanā. One who continue to observe on the process of mind. He says, though my body dies, mind doesn't die. Mind continues. So he is the one who becomes deathless, who goes beyond the death. Going beyond the death means he is going beyond the fear of death. He has no more fear.